Was our family happy 2026? Because now New Year, the New Year started in springtime, where everything come to life. The flowers, the grass, the plants. That's the New Year. So don't get caught up with this New Year thing. January 1st. No, that's not New Year. No, no, New Year is in the springtime anyway. Let me just reference subject. Listen, these white folks, I'm going to put some clips here about white people that speak about how that white people is a problem. No, they're waking up to see that they are the problem. See, because no, it's affecting them. No, that the shit is affecting them. No, they see that they are the problem. But when it was affecting us, they didn't give a fuck about us anymore. But know that the shit is affecting them. And know they're seeing exactly what we used to go through before. No, they complain that white folks a problem. But white folks was always a fucking problem. They were always a problem. Every part of the world they go, they fuck up everything. So they're not the problem now. They were always a problem. No, they just admitting that they're a problem. But they were always a problem. Anyway, folks, hang on. Like I was saying, don't care what part of the world they go, there's a problem. There is a problem. Black folks going to part of the world, we're not a problem. We can live peaceful, everybody. But don't care what they want. They want to destroy, bring down, kill, eliminate, because they are always a problem. No, they're realizing that they are the problem. No, they want to admit that they're they want to admit that they are the problem, but they were always a problem. Anyway, folks, hang on, hang on, folks.
Every economic problem that we're facing in this country right now, student loan debt being just out of control, the government shutdown, SNAP benefits being cut, health insurance premiums about to go through the roof, your rent going up, your pay stagnating, groceries just being astronomical, is because
I am
reparations were
piggybacking
never paid
off of
after the
him.
Civil War.
I am piggybacking
Let
off
me
of him.
explain. After the Civil War, the Union, the North won and the South was defeated, but the South was never punished. The Confederacy lived on in the ideology of the people, of the white people of the South. Reparations were never paid to Black Americans. They were never really truly given the opportunity to pick themselves up by their bootstraps, to rise up and become equal members of this country, equal citizens. They've been fighting for their equality since then. They've never actually truly achieved it. So when white people hear a promise from Donald Trump et al. That we're going to run the country like a business, to them that sounds appealing. They're like, oh yeah, because you know what? I'm a business owner. I own this country because I'm white. When Black and brown people hear, well, we're going to run the country, run the government like a business, they understand what that means because they've been dealing with it for centuries. White people think that they are on the side of the owners, the masters, but they're not. Most white people have more in common with the Black and brown people that they look down upon. They are closer to them in the economic tax bracket than they are to the white billionaires whose asses they kiss. But listen to them glazing billionaires, especially on this app. I make $50,000 a year, but I have more in common with Jeff Bezos than I do with George Floyd. Bullshit! The only reason the lie of let's run this country like a business appealed to you is because you thought you would benefit. And now, here you are. Now, here you are, understanding that when they say we're going to run this country like a business, that means they're going to profit off of your ass. That means that if you take $100,000 loan out to go to college, you will be in debt to the federal government until the day you fucking die. You borrowed 100 grand, prepare to repay 300 grand. Because they're running the government like a business now. And guess what? You're a customer, not an owner. The government exists to serve us, not to profit off of us. And we will continue to have these problems until y'all get
the problem in America. You guys are the issue. You guys, you people.
We're trying to get better.
Huh? Whitey?
Let's talk about my white privilege for a minute. I have never once in my life been persecuted, never discriminated against, never looked down on for the way I think or talk or behave. I am an upper middle class white dude in red America. I can walk the streets of my town at ease because I look just like every dude who thinks Trump is Jesus. But when I look into the next 4 years, it's not me or my family that I worry about. We'll be able to afford an economy going downhill. I've got a college education and a 6-figure income. I'm gonna be just fine. My wife is white, my kids are white, they're gonna be fine too. But if your thought process stops there as a white dude in America, you've got a problem. Especially if you're a white Christian dude in America. See, I don't vote for Democratic policies for myself. I am actually less likely to benefit from all the things that I think are important for everyday Americans to have. So when I say things like, I think kids should not have to worry about lunch while they're at school, or that healthcare should be free for every American, I don't vote for those things because I can't afford them or because I don't have access. I vote for them because other people can't. And if you don't see Jesus in that mindset, I don't know what to tell you. It was Jesus who radicalized me. And it is because of his words that I am able to look beyond myself and empathize with other Americans that do not share my privilege. So here's the simple message. If you look like me and you don't care about the people that don't look like me, you're the problem.
I'm Vic Myers. Welcome to the Resistance. I've been trying for a while now to figure out how to talk about something that's been on my mind. Recent events, I think, finally pushed it up. What I want to say is that racism is a white people problem. A white people problem that others are forced to live with. As a white man, I've never had to be afraid of being pulled over by the cops. As a white father, I've never had to have that special talk with my kids about not looking wrong or saying the wrong thing to a cop for fear that they wouldn't come home again. I've never had to worry about being turned down for a mortgage because of the color of my skin or where to go jogging. Never had to worry that I could be scooped up by ICE just for looking like I might belong to the wrong group, even though I was born here. I never committed the misdemeanor crime of selling cigarettes. But if I did, it wouldn't be a capital offense. These are things that people of color have to deal with every stinking day. These are things that white people allow, that white people cause. I think I'm finally ready to talk about it now because of the state that our country's in, the permission that Donald Trump has given for racist behavior, and the hope I recently felt when I saw the latest poll numbers. For reasons that never made sense to me, Donald Trump has gained support in nearly every demographic when he won his last election, including non-white communities. But now, recent polling suggests that just about everybody is finally seeing him for what he is. They're seeing his racism, the racism emanating from this administration like stink from a skunk. And they're saying it's not okay. He's lost everything that he gained, and then some, among all these groups. Well, every group except one. That one group is white, non-college educated men, the last stronghold of Trump's race-based politics. Polling indicates that a majority of this group is still standing solidly behind Trump and his policies. Unfortunately for them, they're not going to be any better off under Trump's policies than anybody else. Maybe one day they'll realize that their racism isn't worth what they're losing. And maybe the rest of us will realize something too, that racism is a white people problem, and it's up to white people to solve it. It's up to white people to call it out among their coworkers, their friends, and their family. It's up to white people to be the loudest and proclaim that racism is no longer acceptable in American institutions. It's up to white people to make sure that we're not voting for the racists.
Majority of school blank and mass blank that are happening across this country are being committed by white boys. So let me ask you this. If you're a parent, white women, what are we doing? Because this year, in April, I got married, and in doing so, became a bonus mom of 2 beautiful little boys. And I have to tell you, every day we're combating messaging. Every day we're working on sharing emotions, expressing anger. We're working on things as parents to ensure that we are raising emotionally healthy, mature, communicative young men. in the future. So I'm really concerned that that's not happening. What I'm understanding is that yes, this is 100% a pew-pew access to pew-pew problem, that as a culture we are raising violent human beings. The overexposure and glorification of violence in our households has to stop. You have got to get a hold of what we are showing, teaching, exposing our children to, and being better, more present parents, because this is a problem in white households. So if we are white parents, we have to do something about it.
Most of the most racist people that I've ever been around are the kindest to animals. They will sit there and dote on their dogs and just like really make sure they have the most pampered, amazing life possible, while at the same time defending police violence, using racist dog whistles, or even criticizing movements that promote social equality. You would think that compassion for humans and animals go hand in hand, but for many people it does not. Because ultimately they see their pets as an extension of themselves, whereas with other people who are members of minority groups, they see them as this distinct and separate entity. That's why you'll also see white people have a lot more sympathy for the white South African immigrants that came here. Their empathy only goes as far as themselves or their families, so that includes their dogs, that includes people with the same skin color as them. But the second they are asked to empathize beyond that, that's when it stops, because their hatred has consumed them, which has led to a historic pattern of white people treating their animals better than human beings. And when they owned human beings and animals, the animals were treated much better.
I don't know how many times I have to remind people that white people are not the morality standard, socioculturally, sociopolitically, geopolitically, historically, on the basis of humanity, because white history, imperialism, colonialism, and the delusion of white supremacy are the most violent, unethical, and illegitimate systems of oppression that have never been reprimanded, and white people have never paid reparations for the harm that they have done to black and brown people across the globe. Mind you, they could never pass the purity test that they are obsessively trying to give black women on a daily basis, because that would require being honest about history, about their place in it, their role in it, past and present, about the fact that chattel slavery still exists. It never went away, here on U.S. soil and beyond. Genocide never ended here on U.S. soil and beyond, and the cognitive dissonance is coming from the fact that white people do not register that they are still a part of the oppressor class. As long as they have not been reprimanded, as long as reparations have not been paid, they are the oppressors. They are not the puritanical morality standard. And because they have evolved epigenetically with unreprimanded colonialism, imperialism, and the delusion of white supremacy, they automatically see themselves as authoritarian figures, which is why they're constantly trying to establish themselves as cops and police everything black and brown people are doing. The police state was designed to be a continuation of genocide and a vehicle for chattel slavery that specifically targets black people.
True that.
White people
True
could
that.
use their privilege to solve these problems, but they choose not to. They are not targets of the police state. They have the privilege, they have the resources, they have the systemic power, and they choose not to. White leftists specifically, who are constantly spouting 200-year-old theory by European white men that was not designed to solve the systemic issues of racialized oppression in the West, could apply that theory that they are demanding everyone operate on, but they don't, because they don't want to. The only functional example that they have of Marxism, communism, socialism, etc. working is the Black Panther Party. They are not up to date in their theory. They have no history of that being a practice here in the West. We are not living in the East. This is the West, where racialized chattel slavery and genocide are the pervasive, continuous systems. Black and brown victimhood was designed to exist in perpetuity because the systemic oppression of white supremacy was never intended to not exist. If white people genuinely wanted liberation, they could, but they are oppressors. Oppressors are not liberators, which is why they are constantly trying to derail black and brown efforts. Always. And they have this internalized white supremacy, this internalized white cis heteropatriarchy, this internalized colonialism and imperialism that, again, they have epigenetically evolved with. Which is why they are not working to uninternalize it. And unfortunately, when it comes to politics, when it comes to intersectional leadership, like black women, for example, these are the same people who don't recognize that they are already operating within a base level of misogynoir and subconscious and conscious bias. And they are trying to push purity tests on black women to affirm that bias, that confirmation bias, that black people can't be trusted. If you are white, why do you think you should be trusted? What have you done for black people? What have you done for brown people? What land have you given back? What reparations have you paid? That European theory, again, that's 200 years old, you haven't applied it. You're trying to scapegoat black labor because y'all don't actually want to do it. Because you can look at things theoretically when you're a part of the oppressor class and when you're not actually experiencing the subjugation that you are perpetuating. But also, black people, let's not pretend like our community does not have a real history of attempting to bypass and avoid and deny black victimhood. And that is internalized white supremacy. When you are black and your critique of black women is only garnering celebration from white people, there is a blind spot in your liberation. There's a blind spot in your politics. And I'm not saying that black people are above criticism, that black politicians are above reproach, but there is something very odd about being black and being a soft landing space for other people's misogynoir, for their white supremacy. And that is what is happening. And there are these fake white leftists who are claiming, I'm critical of everybody, da 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 da. But then if I go to your reply on Threads, why is there 100 critiques of black women and no critiques of white people? There's receipts. You can see people's replies on Threads. Why are you constantly in black people's comments arguing, trying to dissuade black leadership? Because that is what white leftist politics is. White leftists do not understand that they are the modern day white liberals that black leaders warned us about. Because the white liberals evolved, or devolved, as I should say, into moderate conservatives. And white leftists have now become the white liberals. The reason why you think that nothing you're saying is misogynoir is because you're still an oppressor. In a world where racism still exists and the delusion of white supremacy is the pervasive and dominating societal system, you will never run out of white people to correct. You will never run out of white people to convert from racist to non-racist. But unfortunately, black people, brilliant black people who do have valid criticisms, there are so many white people looking at your dissent of black people, of black women in leadership as a way to scapegoat their white supremacy. They are looking to hide behind you. I'm not saying this is true of every single black person who's critical of black women in leadership, but what I'm saying is that there are more racists than not. And there are very few white people who really completed that uninternalizing of white supremacy, that decolonizing, that deconstructing. Very, very few. Very few. And everybody white thinks they're the exception, and they're not. Which is why most people's politics continues to fall apart on misogynoir and anti-blackness. White people, does not matter your political affiliation. Your demographic, white people, overwhelmingly put a fascist in office. That was your community. Doesn't matter if you're a communist, a Marxist, a Democrat, a socialist, you're whatever. It doesn't even matter how you voted. What matters is the overwhelming majority of you, of your community, voted for this. So you're not in a position to puritanical politic with anybody. You should be puritanical testing your own community. Puritanical morality police white people. Because y'all have done nothing for black people. Y'all have done nothing for black improvement. Y'all have done nothing for indigenous improvement, for brown people. Y'all have done nothing but continue to be the bully victims in every situation. Your critique needs to be primarily targeted at white people. You think that you have intellectually bypassed white supremacy through leftism, and you're still behaving as white supremacists, regurgitating white supremacy. And unfortunately, black people, we are guilty of intellectualizing our way through internalized white supremacy to avoid victimhood, to avoid the label of victimhood. We're already surpassing the oppressor. As long as chattel slavery still exists and has not been reprimanded, as long as reparations have not been paid, we're still operating in a system of white supremacy. And white people's opinion about politics, we've been subject to white people's opinions about politics, and look at where this country's at.
This is why people don't trust white people, because it is peak whiteness and colonizer behavior to demand civility for a man who denies others their humanity. That's the oppressor, and we do not need to sympathize or empathize with them. And don't get me wrong, because I long for a world where there is no violence in it. But until all of us are free, none of us are free, and violence is part of the equation because of the oppressor, not the oppressed. We need to understand that violence comes in many forms, and white people need to learn it most of all.
Okay, I'm just gonna vent for a minute. I'm continually amazed at some of the comments I get from white people about my thoughts on white supremacy. They act like it doesn't exist, like I'm talking nonsense. I said in a recent post, if you only hang out with white people, then you're racist. A lot of them said that's a silly take, and instead of maybe looking at their own lives to question if maybe it's true, they get defensive and argue semantics like, well, people have a mostly homogenous friend group that share their same background. Yes, exactly my point. That is white supremacy. Read a book. But when I suggest that, they decline. They've clearly not educated themselves by walking in another person's shoes.
Okay, you can watch the whole thing right here. You can watch the whole thing right there on YouTube.
They're too afraid to admit their own role in race.
I'm going to cut it short there, folks. You didn't know. There were and always will be the problem. Like I said, all white folks not bad because I have some white folks in my family. All not bad. And then again, all cannot be bad because if not for some white folks, when Harriet Tubman was doing it on the road, a lot of our folks will not make it to Canada. So all white folks not bad. But the majority of them fucked up. Fucked up. Peace out, lots of love.